who has said some very key important things with relates to the issue of avoiding the issue of drugs, alcohol, and other substance abuses.
As the festival continued, there was more and more artistic work on display. Abubakar Dabo, Grts.
The next Operation Clean the Nation is slated for Saturday, 5th January 2013 throughout the country. A news release from the National Environment Agency reminds all governors, Sefolu, Alkalulu and councillors of the presidential directive, urging them to organize and coordinate the national cleanup exercise in their localities. The agency, through the dispatch, solicits the support, cooperation and active participation of the general public, all government and private institutions, AI companies, youth organizations, members of the Gambia Transport Control Association, Antipa Garage at Bakote in the national exercise. The Central African Multinational Force has deployed heavily armed soldiers near the city of Damara, 75 kilometers north of the capital Bangui, to ward off the advancing rebels threatening to oust President Francois Bozize. And Zimbabweans will go to the polls in March to elect a new president, but the Electoral Commission says the lack of a staggering $200 million could serve as a stumbling block to the conduct of the votes. We'll be back with these stories after the break.
At Zenith Bank, every day is a celebration. We celebrate you, our customers, for taking every stride with us all through the year. Zenith Bank, the biggest bank in West Africa, your ideal banking partner, offering the most innovative and technologically driven products and catering for all your financial needs. With a wide range of banking products including our reliable money transfer platforms, RIA, Western Union and Money Express, that ensures your money is securely sent and received. Our e-products guarantee you a world-class banking experience with products like XPath, real-time access, WebPay, and our reliable alerts and internet banking. We pride ourselves in people, technology and service. We are here to serve you and share in your success story. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from Zenith Bank, a truly Gambian partner.
Welcome back. The Central Africa Multinational Force has deployed heavily armed soldiers near the city of Damara. The objective is to warn advancing rebels against taking the city, which lies 75 kilometers north of the capital Bangui. The move, as we hear in the CFI report, seems to be working well for the government, as the Seleka rebel coalition now opted for negotiations with the Bozize government.
Armored cars of the Central African Multinational Force have deployed heavily near the city of Damara. This is a strong show of men and weapons, like a warning to the rebels in case they might be thinking of taking the city, located only 75 kilometers north of the capital, Bangui. And the tactic has paid off. The Seleka rebel coalition has decided to stop advancing and now wants to negotiate.
If the rebels decide to approach Damara, they know they will encounter a force that will react. Where we are now, we are no longer uniquely a dissuasive force. We are prepared to intervene if the need for an intervention arises.
The city of Damara has been deserted. When the announcement came 6 days ago that the rebels were arriving, local inhabitants fled their homes to go hide in the bush.
Everyone is hiding out in the bush, especially the women and children. There are no more hospitals, no more markets, really nothing. And we are suffering.
But now, little by little, inhabitants here are going home, a possible sign that the situation is returning to normal. These families had left Bangui. They are returning after the declarations by military officials that the capital is safe. But the overall situation is far from being stable. That depends on upcoming negotiations between the rebels and the Central African government, scheduled to take place beginning on January 8th in Libreville, Gabon.
Now to take our second break, stay tuned. Welcome back, and we now shift our attention to the sports news, and my colleague Fadjasi is here to update us on the latest in the sports world. Fadjasi, what's up?
Thank you.
Brilliant is.
Towards the end of Thursday's controversial Mario Balotelli and his Italian boss Roberto Mancini had to be pulled apart after an angry training ground burst up between the pair on Thursday. This latest episode raised more questions over the striker's long-term future at Manchester City. A Balotelli challenge on Scott Singlas towards the end of Thursday's morning session was too severe for Mancini's liking. The gaffer was subsequently involved in a grappling match with his Italian compatriot. The entire fracas was captured by a photographer, with the duo separated by members of the City coaching staff before Balotelli returned to the dressing room. He departed the training ground only 10 minutes later. One City insider has described this spat as a storm in a teacup and said it was forgotten about instantly. But the club still acknowledged the significance of the high-profile and now widespread images. Mancini was pictured still wagging his finger as he entered the office building. It is the latest in a long line of incidents that have tested City's patience with the player since he signed in 2010. There is no immediate suggestion that Balotelli will be officially punished by the club. In fact, the photographs arguably show Mancini as the aggressor, but that much will remain unclear until the manager speaks. As a manager, you are a huge Premier League fan. What is your take on the rather unpredictable Super Mario?
Well, I have nothing to say. Had it been that was Manchester United, maybe you'll be lucky to get a comment from me. Well, thank you, Fatu. And before we end this edition of the news, a reminder of our headlines. The Office of the President has issued a press release warning against the purchasing and exportation of groundnut by unauthorized operators. The chairman of the Independent Electoral Commission, Alhaji Mustafa El Crayol, has announced April 4th as the date for the next local government elections in the Gambia. The coalition of rebels threatening to oust President Francois Bozize of the Central African Republic has called for negotiations with government as the regional military force stationed heavily armed troops near Damara, 75 kilometers north of the capital Bangui. And President Robert Mugabe has targeted March 2013 for his country's presidential ballot, but the Electoral Commission said a funding gap of $200 million stands in the way of the upcoming vote on Zimbabwe's constitutional referendum. That brings us to the end of this edition of the news. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs.
The meeting, which brought together heads of all institutions under the President's office and parastatals such as GPA, Social Security, Civil Aviation, National Aid Secretariat, among others, availed them the opportunity for the first time to sit as one family with the country's chief executive and discuss ways of